Do I think there's a strong possibility that Trump gets assassinated? Absolutely, I do. I think the risk to his life has never been greater.
As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
Welcome back, Reluctant Preppers. We have an important returning guest tonight, Rob Kirby, founder of KirbyAnalytics.com, longtime analyst and commentator on the precious metals markets and global economic and financial and political situations, is back here with us again on Reluctant Preppers. Rob, thank you for joining us again.
Pleasure to be with you, Donegan.
We are 1 week and counting from the Donald Trump election that was a historic event that took many by surprise, including myself. A lot of us did not believe that it would be possible for someone who is not supported by the establishment and by the globalists, by the media, by the political party, major political parties, etc., to break through all of that and get into office. But he managed that. If you could just give us your perspective. You're a Canadian citizen, still with us here in the North American continent, but outside the U.S., what your view from outside is looking in on that phenomenon and that historic event that we just went through.
Well, to be honest with you, Donegan, I really did suspect that Trump was going to win. And what really tipped it for me and made my mind up so decisively, I talked to a lot of Americans, from all over America. Like, I talked to people in the South, I talked to some people in New York, I talked to some people in the Heartland, and I talked to people on the West Coast. And I've been doing my own Kirby poll, where I've been asking people, when they're out in the community in the run-up to the election, when they're out in the community, what kind of signage do you see regarding the the choices in the election? And people that I know out in the West Coast told me that all they saw all summer was Bernie Sanders signs. And it was hard to find a Hillary sign. People in Florida that I talked to told me they only saw Trump signs and didn't see any Democrat signs. Period. People in New York told me that even Hillary signs were hard to find. So, like the consensus was, like, Hillary did not have support. Now, we know that there was, listen, unless you have your head buried somewhere where it shouldn't be, you know that Hillary did not have broad-based support, and you know that, look, with the WikiLeaks and the Project Veritas revelations, we know that there was a substantial amount of election fraud committed. And we know that there was also vote switching going on in a number of key battleground states. And it's just that every time I heard of an instance of there being an issue with the vote, it was always an issue of votes either being stolen or taken from Trump and given to Hillary. So let's just say there was very likely a goodly amount of election fraud that occurred, and Trump's win was so amazingly large, and his support was actually so broad-based that he overcame, let's just say, substantial roadblocks that were put in his way. And all I can say is all the power to him. And it's hopefully he will retain this, the reins of power. But I don't think he's in the clear yet.
Well, even just before the election, at the last presidential debate, he was posed a very sort of gotcha question by the moderator on, will you accept the outcome of the election regardless of what it was? And when he did not unanimously, sign up to that, he was roundly criticized as being a un-American, unpatriotic, a spoil sport, in it for himself and not for the people, and on and on. I mean, it was just choruses of criticism for days in the media around that. And yet, coming out of the result of the election, where he did get the majority electoral votes, We have seen now a solid week of demonstrations and riots and property destruction and fires and there's each day I've seen another story of even school children, junior high age and so on, getting beaten up at school by their peers for having admitted that they voted for Trump in the mock election or that sort of thing, posting it on their Facebook that they supported him at all. So what is going on with this phenomenon of demanding that Trump would agree to support the outcome of the election, and yet that's not what we're seeing from the culture at large or the way that it's being portrayed in the media either?
Well, it's clearly demonstrative of the globalist entity that you and I have spoken about many times when we've done interviews. This globalist entity has infested not only the DNC but the RNC also. And what you have to do is view Trump's rise to prominence as the success of populism over globalism, because if you're not looking at what just occurred through that lens, I think you're missing really a big part of what actually happened. Because the old school Republicans are just as globalist as the Democratic Party. And these globalists are very authoritarian, and when they don't get their way, they tend to throw hissy fits because they are authoritarian, and as I've said many times, they have contempt for humanity, and they feel that they are vastly superior to us common eaters. I think is a name that can be attributed to them in their descriptives of us, the little people. And with Trump trouncing this globalist entity, it is, I think it's got them back on their heels to an extent anyway. But and the other thing too that I want to touch on, I don't for a minute really believe that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. I mean, with the amount of vote stealing and vote fraud that was committed by the DNC, I would be inclined to think along the lines of, I'm going to put this in football language because a lot of people understand football. If you spot someone 14 points at the beginning of the game, and you beat them 21-14. They didn't have a very good day on the field, and my gut tells me that the score was probably much more like 21-14, where Hillary, through vote stealing and election rigging, probably started with 14 points before the game even started.
Right.
So, and Trump still overcame that, which tells you how large the groundswell really was for him. And I'd like people to understand that I remember listening to an interview a few days back where Alex Jones was interviewing a lady named Bev Harris, who herself is a Democrat. And she happens to be the world's leading authority on vote rigging. And her analysis of the results of the election last week, she figures that very easily, based on her analysis, that Hillary Clinton very likely stole 5 states. So if you look at the electoral map of the United States, and if you look at how red the map is anyway, and then imagine 5 more states being red, Hillary didn't really do well anywhere.
Now, you had mentioned in the past, and just again in a minute ago, about the anti-human ideology of the globalists. And in the lead up to the election, we were hoping we could get an interview in with you. Weren't able to just before the election, but we found out that the George Soros's Open Society Foundation was spending nominally upwards of $20 million just in Colorado to advocate for their physician-assisted suicide bill, which ended up passing and is now law in Colorado. But what is the connection here between globalists and pushing things like physician-assisted suicide, pushing abortion on demand, and trying to get that propagated into all the African nations, etc. What is the connection there for globalists about trying to reduce the human population?
Well, the globalists feel that the appropriate population for planet Earth is, instead of being 7 billion roughly that it is today, the appropriate population in their minds should be something around 500 million, which means that the globalists have little use for roughly 6.5 billion people currently walking this planet. And the method to get us to that number that the globalists have adopted is a very strongly biased to eugenics policy. And this is why you see the globalist interest behind the promotion and propagation of GMO food, behind the adding of adjuvants to vaccines, which, cause an enormous amount of problems with reactions to vaccines. And the thing that's sad about this whole thing with the vaccines is that science has the ability to make clean vaccines, but they don't make clean vaccines to give to the masses. Instead, they put things like mercury in them and other adjuvants that cause severe or potentially severe and life-threatening reactions when given to the masses. So, and look, hey, how about fluoride in the water? I mean, fluoride is an extremely toxic substance, which is, according to Harvard studies, is supposed to be responsible for reducing IQs. So we're under attack, and then again, and don't get me going on the chemtrail topic, where it's admitted that there is terraforming of some top secret program is occurring where things and particulates are being sprayed in the air. So, and we know that this is a government program. They even admit it, but they won't talk about what the real purpose is behind it. And from that standpoint, the global warming issue or the climate change issue and debate is another darling of the globalists. And my view is this: if you're going to push climate change, and if you're going to be serious about it, then you can't have it both ways. You can't be spraying particulate in the air to modify climate, and then turn around and say that humans are causing any change there might be in the climate, because these two ideas are contradictory. We have secret plans where we spray stuff in the air to alter climate, but humans are causing all the change that's occurring to the climate. It just doesn't wash, and it's a silly argument. And the reality is, the reason why we have this climate change being made such an issue, because it gives the globalists the ability to impose global tax. And global tax is called carbon tax. And that's the funding mechanism for the globalist wet dream of a one world global government, because you can't have a government unless you have a way to fund it. And it was in Davos roughly 5 years ago that the globalists put forward this agenda that they wanted to raise $100 trillion over the next 10 years, in the name of climate reduction. This 100 trillion, by the way, just happens to be the kind of number that they need to fund their global government. So, the whole thing is a complete rat's nest. Let's just say that populist interests globally in the last few months have established a couple of beachheads, one on the other side of the pond with the on the back of the Brexit vote, and now Trump has established a beachhead for the populist movement in Washington. And let's just hope and pray that he's able to secure the beachhead and actually does get sworn in as the next president.
That theme of physician-assisted suicide supported by the globalists really got me thinking about a principle of suicide that we're being expected to sign up for. And if you think about, I guess I'd like to call it the suicide of sovereignty. You mentioned in some of your earlier interviews about NAFTA and TPP, how those are really foisted off in the name of trade and improved economics, but they're really ways of grabbing, basically killing the sovereignty of the country and taking over as an external entity. I thought you would talk about immigration, and Clinton was on record as having quoted saying we should have open markets and open borders. So open borders is surrendering. It's suicidal to the sovereignty of your nation. And go ahead.
I mean, Dunnigan, all you're doing is you're outlining all the globalist wet dreams. I mean, globalists are for the breakdown or elimination of national sovereignty, the elimination of borders, anything that you can think of that's anti-human, you will find very close to the core values of the globalist movement. So, doctor-assisted suicide is very in keeping with the notion of getting rid of people. I mean, it's this liberal approach, which I don't even consider it liberal. It's disgusting. But basically, with the globalists, anything goes. Whether it's the promotion of absurdity and crazy kinky sex, whether it's listen, anything that attacks the family and promotes the state. So anything that breaks the family down. That's why globalists are so dead set against homeschooling, for instance, and why they want Common Core, because if you take the time to read through some of Podesta's emails, you're going to see that they're following policies, and they state clearly in their emails that they want to keep the population ignorant. They want to keep us uninformed. They don't want us to be aware of what's going on around us. And the reason they don't want us aware of what's going on around us is because they are committing hideous acts in plain view. And all you need to do is take the time to observe what's happening. And you know what? A lot of people have lost touch with the common sense to pay attention to what's going on around them.
Ever since we've seen also in this administration, the Obama administration, it's been just baffling to anyone of common sense looking on and saying, if you didn't know better, you'd think that you had an enemy in the White House basically giving away all advantages of our country, these pinprick refusal to engage when battling with ISIS, and horrible diplomatic deals with Syria, and on and on and on. Just whatever it takes to diminish the United States and to decrease our ability to be a great nation. So that theme of enforced suicide just kept coming back in my mind, because there's at national policy levels, and I even remembered back when the Obamacare was getting passed, and a lot of analyses of it was saying this is going to be unaffordable. Nobody's going to be able to pay for this. It's really a tax. You're not going to be able to have freedom to choose, and yet you had legislator after legislator after legislator lining up, basically falling on the sword. I don't know if I'm going to get reelected, but I'm going to vote for this thing because I'm going to stand behind Obama. And the famous quote, we have to see what's in it. We can vote for it first so we can see what's in it. It's like this just irrational and inexplicable, willing to commit, suicide politically or whatever, just to support this ideology. And even the mainstream media recently, you've roundly criticized them for basically destroying their own franchise by buying into and propagating so much of this ideology. But so they're actually there's corporate suicide being committed as well. All of these things in the name of these globalist ideologies. What is driving this? It's in madness.
Well, what's driving it is largely, I would say, the entrails of the dying Democratic establishment are trying to sabotage Trump before he ever makes it to office. We did see late last week, in the aftermath of the election, when Trump visited the White House, we saw the two of them sitting in the Oval Office. We saw President Obama tell the American public that he was doing everything he can to facilitate a smooth transition of power, and he was trying to make himself or put himself forward as being a maker of peace, and trying to unite or help the country heal, I think were the words he used. And he said, if Trump does well, then the country does well. And he was trying to position himself as being a champion of that. Well, the reality, for anybody who wants to pay attention, is that I have some questions for Mr. Obama. If indeed those are his intentions, and if he is sincere at all, why is someone like George Soros one of the linchpins in the globalist movement? He's funding basically, I'm going to say terrorist organizations. He is funding organizations like MoveOn.org, like Black Lives Matter. And these are the people that are organizing and paying agitators in cities around America who are being bussed in to different cities and who are attacking law enforcement officers, are inciting violence, and are looting and burning American cities. So my question to Mr. Obama: Why has George Soros, who brags about doing this all over the world, by the way, and is really honing his practice of this in America now, why has George Soros not been indicted? Why are George Soros' assets not frozen? Because you see, a lot of the planning that's occurred with Soros. We know that he works hand in glove with the DNC, and we know that the DNC planning apparatus runs directly through the White House, under the Obama brand. So, Mr. Obama is saying one thing, and he's doing something completely the opposite. He's giving us sweet talk for public consumption, but he's working to undermine and sabotage Trump's the Trump brand and Trump coming to power and having an air of legitimacy to him. So Mr. Obama speaks with a forked tongue, and it's a disgrace. And for the media to suggest that these demonstrations against Trump are organic, spontaneous uprisings by disgruntled people is another dog that doesn't hunt. I mean, there are pictures. You can go and search this on Zero Hedge with the Chicago demonstrations late last week against Trump and his victory. We had the mainstream press championing or trying to champion that it was all local people and it was a groundswell organic uprising against Trump, and yet just blocks away from the demonstrations, there was literally a lineup of 5 blocks long of buses with constant license plates where people were brought in, and you know who did the funding to mobilize that mass of humanity? It's got George Soros' fingerprints all over it, and it was all planned and organized by the Democratic National Committee. And you know, this is absolutely insane that these vagrants and the funding from these terrorists are allowed to incite violence and burn American cities to the ground. It's absolutely insane.
That's the other complete surreal disconnect that even a casual observer to the news over the past administration can't help but have noticed, is that all you have to have is have a single individual of color who's shot by someone who they can claim is at least part white, and then you have the Justice Department like flying in to manage the situation. You've got the President of the United States coming out and making public statements about it the next day and everything. But when you've got these widespread riots, and you've got the opposite, bashing and violence at Trump rallies being perpetrated by outsiders coming in and everything, no condemnation, absolutely zero from the president about any of that. So it's not violence that's the problem. It's not protesting and demonstration that's a problem. It's only when it's in a certain direction and for a particular purpose.
Yes, it is. It's just fraud. It's fraud. It's fraud. What it really amounts to, it's sedition, it's treason, and it's crimes against humanity. And this is what is being committed by the Democratic National Committee, the Clinton campaign, the Obama White House, and much of it is being funded by Mr. George Soros. So that's what reality is. But yet we have Mr. Obama, who wants to go in front of the cameras and say he's doing everything he can to facilitate a smooth transition of power. It's bunk.
In the face of all of this, what's an honest person to do? I mean, there's the part about getting the truth, trusting your gut, and then there's taking prudent steps. So could you just walk us through that? Where do you get the truth? How do you trust your gut? And what are prudent steps to take in the face of all this?
Well, to begin with, where do you get the truth? Well, you get the truth, certainly not by listening to anybody in the mainstream media who have discredited themselves beyond belief. You don't get the truth from the New York Times. You don't get the truth from the Washington Post. You do not get the truth from CNN, CBS, NBC, or ABC. You get the truth in places like sites like your own, Dunnigan. You get the truth from InfoWars, Alex Jones' website. You get the truth from Breitbart. You get the truth from Matt Drudge in a huge way. You get the truth from WorldNet Daily. You get the truth from the alternative press, because the mainstream press has vacated their responsibility, their fiduciary duty to perform investigative journalism and report the truth. So you have to go to the alternative means, and there you have to use your own filters, because there is garbage in the alternative media, but you have to use your own filters, and you have to ask questions. And if people won't give you sound answers or rational answers to your questions, then you usually or should know who's giving you the straight goods. Usually, it's not the people who are giving you full and complete answers, and people who won't answer questions or attack you for asking questions.
Yeah.
They're usually people that are not giving you a straight line on anything. So, and then I think if you're thinking through this situation completely, I think you should also be asking yourself, why would somebody have an interest to misinform me and have me dumb down? Why? What's the point to this? And why would they do such things? Well, the reason they want us dumbed down is because they're pulling. Not only are they harvesting our rights, they're also robbing us blind in terms of basically stealing our futures, and they're doing a lot of the issues, or a lot of these things that are being committed are being done to either mask or hide what's going on in the financial world, which is another completely and utterly deplorable host of I want to say they're just insane acts. I mean, our capital markets are literally a crime scene. What goes on? And look, we saw evidence of this on election night. It was the day of the election, it was still guaranteed slam dunk by the mainstream media that Hillary Clinton was going to win in a landslide.
Right.
And then by mid-evening, when it started to look pretty much like Donald Trump was going to win, we had the Dow Jones futures down 800 points inside of 45 minutes. We had gold up $70. Then the price managers came, checked in for work late on Tuesday evening, and by Wednesday we had the Dow Jones do a turnaround from being down 800 to being up 260 points. That had the fingerprints of the plunge protection team, or as I refer to the real managers, the Exchange Stabilization Fund, a secretive offshoot of the U.S. Treasury. And the price of gold was turned around in its tracks and was smeared to the tune of $60 or $70 to the downside. So, it's absolutely incredible. And then we have the mainstream, the usual suspects, the mainstream media saying that people don't like gold and the equity markets love the outcome. Well, you know what? The reality is the free market wanted to take stocks down. The free market wanted to bid gold up. The price managers said, no, you're not having it that way. We are going to enforce our will on you. This is the authoritarian side of the globalists showing through. They instead want us to believe that people abandoned their gold positions because Donald Trump won. And they want us to believe that people bought the stock market because Donald Trump won. And I'm not even trying to give a value judgment whether somebody should buy or sell anything based on an outcome of an election. That's immaterial. But the point is, we did see the way the market wanted to react, and then we saw in convincing fashion the way it was not allowed to react that way, and it was turned around on a dime and crashed in the other direction, whether it's a crash up or a crash down in the case of the metal, and the crash up was in the equities. And I mean, these are manufactured outcomes. These are completely, 100% completely manufactured outcomes. And, doing and committing these acts and committing this kind of financial treason is not it's not sustainable. And all it does is it confuses people. And it confuses people, and in aggregate, people are going to have less confidence in the system when they see things behaving in ways that are opposite to what intuition would have you believe. And so, you see, Dunnigan, if I drop a plate and it falls up, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Okay? And whether you like it or not, in our capital markets today, things are falling up. And if you think that the laws of gravity have been repealed by a bunch of sociopath, liberal thinking, Keynesian financial axemen, guess again. Just guess again. The laws of gravity have not been repealed. Certainly not by men, not by flesh and blood.
And in the face of all that, you mentioned how people can seek out the truth, get their own perspective, trust common sense more than you trust the party line that you're being fed, or the indicators you're being told to watch, which are a manipulated distraction.
And from a financial perspective, I think it would be pretty safe to make a pretty strong bet on the notion that the laws of gravity will reassert themselves and you might want to own some precious metal, physical precious metal.
And that's your main line of analysis. You watch the dynamics that affect the precious metal markets and futures, and a lot of what you've been telling us is some of these enormous mega trends that are happening in the political power centers that are manipulating that as well. What do you see going forward for the future of precious metals? Will it entirely depend on how long the Exchange Stabilization Fund and others like them can keep this game going of suppressing the prices through paper manipulation? And how do you see that playing out?
Well, let's put it this way. The amount of selling that was done in 3 days, after the election till Friday last week, we saw selling equivalent of, I've read different numbers, but it's somewhere between 6,800 and 8,000 metric tons of gold in paper form was sold into the markets in under 72 hours. So let's just say that to give people an idea how much gold that ostensibly represents, if 8,000 tons was sold into the market, that means pretty much 3 times the global annual mine supply of gold was sold into the marketplace in paper form in under 72 hours. You see, this is gold that does not exist, Dunnigan. It hasn't been mined, and it's not sitting anywhere where it's for sale. So absolutely imaginary gold was sold, and 3 years worth of it was sold into the marketplace by a bunch of sycophant banks acting on direction from a sycophant group of Keynesian madmen at the U.S. Treasury, and their orders being distributed through their broker at the Federal Reserve to trash the gold market. Now, all I can tell you is, if you sit down and think about that for a little while, that is not a sustainable practice. It's no more sustainable than robbing banks is a sustainable way to make a living. Because you can't sell the global gold production every day, and that's a dog that doesn't hunt. And I don't even think it requires a whole lot of explanation. You see, I can't sell the annual global mine supply of gold every day any more than a farmer can sell his annual corn output in futures form every day.
And I've asked this of some other guests. I think it was Bill Murphy from GATA.org. But do you interpret it? I mean, how that plays out? Again, I'll just take the common man, common sense, the guy who's lost some money trading options and stocks. That's me talking. If you sell short, you had better believe that you're going to be able to cover at a lower price, or you're going to get burned very badly. And the one way you can believe you're going to cover at a lower price is you're going to try to start an avalanche, get others to join you. You be the first one in to start the avalanche. You let it take momentum, hold down, and then you be the first one when it's significantly lower to stop it by buying back and covering at a lower price, and you actually clean a bunch of profit on the deal. Or is it worse than that they don't ever think they're going to be able to cover? I mean, if this has been going on for a decade, this suppression of the markets, they must be so far short, it's unbelievable. Or is it very cleverly done at times when there's thinly trading so they can move it down quickly, and then they can cover at times when it's thickly traded so they don't move it up so much, and that kind of thing?
Well, it's both, but it's more than that. It's done with the complicity of regulators. You see, we have bodies known as the CFTC, which is the Commodity Futures Trading Corporation, the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, that is supposed to, at least in theory or on paper, these organizations are supposed to be the advocates of the little guy, and are supposed to make sure that when people sell these kind of products that they don't own, that they have the means or the ability to actually make good on their promise. In the case of the CFTC and the precious metals, the CFTC absolutely throws the playbook. I mean, there are laws in commodities trading, and the reason the CFTC, I'm quite convinced the reason why the CFTC does not enforce the sellers of precious metal in paper form, the reason they're not forced to show that they have the access to the metal is because the banks are actually acting for the government, or the U.S. Treasury, and it's alluded to and it's claimed by the U.S. government that they possess a little over 8,000 metric tons of gold, sovereign gold, housed at Fort Knox, West Point, and the Denver Mint. So, but this gold, of course, hasn't been properly audited or counted since the Eisenhower administration in the 50s, and the only reason I can even imagine that regulators allow banks to get away with selling what they do is because the banks are claiming that their customer, or they're doing it for the account of the Treasury. Because I can't think of any other reason why they would permit this, because if they're ever found out and it's not that, they go to jail. Because there are laws on there are RICO laws. Like you can't racketeer and commit fraud on that scale. You need to have something behind these orders. So the only thing that makes sense, and with the extreme volumes of selling that are occurring, it has to be government orders. And that would be consistent, also would be very consistent with the mandate given to the Exchange Stabilization Fund. Because the Exchange Stabilization Fund was created by an act of Congress in 1934. It's a very secretive, duplicitous setup to begin with. It reports to nobody. It operates at the discretion of the Treasury Secretary. And it's managed, and its mandate is decided, in Treasury in cahoots with the executive office, or the office of the president. So, this is a reality. This thing does exist, and this thing does not publish. This entity does not publish financials. This entity has the right and can lawfully operate in any market it wishes to operate in, with impunity, subject to no laws. Period. Operates above laws, and is engaged in a host of. Look, they're engaged in everything from arms trading to guns and arms, drugs. Taking down nations, and I mean that's and most of all, their mission is to perpetuate the dollar, as the world's reserve currency. I mean, that's why it was created, and this is what they do, and anyway, it's brutal. It's just completely brutal. So the impetus to put an end to this, in all likelihood, based on what we've just discussed and talked about, the impetus to put an end to this is not going to come from inside the United States, or let's just say not from the globalist interests inside the United States, but with Trump, you never know.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is one of his slogans approaching Washington was, "We're going to drain the swamp." This certainly sounds like the swamp to end all swamps, but it just your personal opinion. do you predict, and we can check back, a year or however long it takes from now to circle back and see if your prediction was right, but in your gut, do you believe that he will follow through on that, or will he find out that as some other president said when they took off, that I didn't know that I was not going to be the one in charge after they got the real situation explained to them? Or do you think that by the force of his will, he's going to be able to really make a difference in this area?
Well, I will say this. I sure hope Donald Trump is alive after December 19th, because December 19th is a date that the electors from the Electoral College meet to cast their votes to, let's just say, put their stamp of approval on the election results. And if Donald Trump, for some reason, isn't still with us at some point before December 19th, the electors would then be free to vote their will, which means they could then still vote, and we could still have Hillary Clinton as your next president. So, do I think there's a strong possibility that Trump gets assassinated? Absolutely, I do. I think the risk to his life has never been greater. Just remember this: Donald Trump has suggested that he's going to reopen the 9/11 investigations. Donald Trump has indicated very strongly that he's going to have possibly investigations into the Clinton Foundation, which in my view personally, based on what I've read about the Clinton Foundation, could bring down the Obama administration, could bring down the heads of many very, very prestigious government entities, from the FBI to the CIA. Look, this is very far-reaching, because the Clinton Foundation has been operating as a criminal enterprise and has been engaged in things that are unthinkable, selling national secrets, pay to play. My goodness, there's so many nasty, and some things I don't even want to talk about, because they're too foul to even discuss here. But let's just say they're very unsavory. And if Trump really does drain the swamp, there's a very, very look, and it's goodbye to the Bush family too. So there's a lot of people who have enjoyed a lot of power and a lot of prestige that have a lot to lose if Donald Trump actually follows through with what he's claimed he's going to do. So do I think there is a big risk to his life? Absolutely. And if he does live to see himself inaugurated, he's also spoken very negatively about the Federal Reserve. And I'll just tell you, bankers or presidents in your country who have been anti-central bank have had very short lifespan, because 4 of them have been assassinated. And isn't it interesting? All 4 of them that were assassinated had very strong bones to pick with the Federal Reserve, and that's just a matter of historical fact. And that's not a conspiracy theory. That is absolute fact, and I've actually written on it. So, and I've researched it, and I know. So, let's just see what happens. I mean, my attitude is pray for the best, and and say a prayer for Donald Trump would be my recommendation. But maybe plan for something a little less than that.
And that kind of leads us to the last point is, look, Donald Trump is one man, and it's really inappropriate for a nation of 350 million people to all put their stake their hopes of asserting their natural rights, their God-given rights, their sovereign rights, on as though it all rises and falls on one man. Why isn't this a wake-up call for everyone to stand up and demand the same things that Trump is demanding as far as their natural rights?
Well, it should be. It should be. But you know what, Dunnigan, I do believe that the chorus of people, like the reality is, I do think people realize that they've been had.
Yeah.
And which is why he had such an overwhelming turnout and an overwhelming support. Listen, he may very well have overcome in excess of 3 million votes that were, illegally planted against him from the outset. And when you think about that, to overcome something like that is a pretty big accomplishment. And the reason it was overcome is because, you know what, people are sick and tired of the status quo. People are sick and tired of our mainstream press because they know our mainstream press is not delivering straight goods. And you know what? And people are sick of having their jobs offshored. People are sick and tired of having financial elites getting away with bloody murder. Really,
right?
Is what it comes down to.
Financial and political elites, both. Yep.
Yeah, and people have had enough. People are saying no mas. We don't want any more of this. And you know what? If you're telling us you're going to drain the swamp, and if you tell us you're going to make people accountable for what they've done, we're with you. Now he needs to follow through. But that puts him in grave danger.
Agreed. Well, Rob, we are out of time. We grateful as always for your joining us here on Reluctant Preppers. Just give people a heads up on where they can find you online.
You can find me on the web at kirbyanalytics.com.
Rob, thank you so much again for joining us once again here on Reluctant Preppers.
Been my pleasure.